should benefit the people, should benefit the country and also the world at large. So today we have our special guest who will be speaking, Mr. Ignatius Kamwanje. He's the managing consultant for Conquest Geo Consulting and Services. He has worked with Geological Survey of Malawi. He is also a contributor to a monthly publication from Mining Review and Trade here in Malawi. He's a mining expert with over 20 years experience in the field. So he will tell us more about the landscape of critical minerals in Malawi and how the country can ensure that these minerals should really transform the economic nature of our country. As the mining has been put in our 2063 development agenda for Malawi as a priority sector, and the country wants to move from a low-income economy to a middle-income economy. And these critical minerals, these transitional minerals, they can help the country to move from one level to another level. So welcome, Ignatius Kamwanje.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chikome Nimanda. I appreciate your invitation to this discussion. And I'll be very happy to see that our deliberations have given very fruitful results for the benefit of Malawi as a nation at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Ignatius, you as a mining expert in the country, what is the current landscape of energy transition minerals in Malawi? And what is the country expecting to benefit from these minerals? Ignatius, unmute your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Malawi is predominantly made up of Precambrian rocks, mostly of granitic and metamorphics. The others are mostly the sedimentary ones. So with respect to minerals that are referred to as transition in terms of green energy, we'll try to look at what does the geology tell us in terms of these minerals. In short, what I can say is Malawi is one of the countries that is being grouped as one that is in the transition, in the implementation of these transition minerals. Sometimes these are called critical minerals. So in terms of geology, the most important minerals that are provide renewable technologies with respect to green minerals, in terms of those that are used, for example, we are talking now of electric generated cars. We have components from minerals like lithium. We have nickel. We also have cobalt that are of course, in minute anomalies, but due to intensive exploration that is being carried out, we have got these minerals that can provide raw materials for batteries and electric cars. And we also have an emergence of rare earths in Malawi. Of late, we have had the exploration companies that have come to do intensive exploration in Malawi. Mostly these are spread across the country, but predominantly in the south, we have a lot of rare earths. These rare earths are very important because they provide magnets that can be used to run, I think, turbines. And these magnetic properties, sometimes they also are used to move huge rotating motors. So we have got these green energy minerals as a source of raw material from Malawi. In another context, we also have those that are used in electricity. They can run electricity grids. For example, in the case of graphite and copper, these are in great abundance in Malawi. We have seen the emergence of exploration companies that are doing a good job in graphite exploration, and also minerals like copper. Not only to mention of those, we have got a diverse range of minerals that can provide renewable technologies in Malawi. So in short, that's what I can say. These transitional minerals are very, very, very important. And Malawi is not left out. It is in the course of emergence for us to move forward in terms of the energy minerals. Now, how do we leverage this in terms of Malawi as a country? As you are aware, Malawi is a small country, but due to explorations that have been carried out, we are moving towards the green energy in the sense that we are trying to decarbonize because we have minerals that are mostly fossil fuels. We have a lot of coal in Malawi, predominantly in the northern Malawi. We also have some indications. I think you can see me.
Yes.
Yeah, we also have some indications of oil and gas, though not explored to the large extent. But what we are trying to say is we are trying to move away from these minerals that are referred to as dirty, because they are said to release carbon that is able to pollute the atmosphere. So the green energy technology is trying to replace these minerals. In other ways, these years we call them the new oil minerals. So these new oil minerals, because they are renewable, we need to adapt some technologies for sustainability in the future. So in that context, we have examples of areas that we can say in terms of the adoption. How does Malawi leverage into that? We can group that into so many aspects. Okay.
Ignatius,
yes.
What are the major transitional minerals which Malawi is exploring right now? But also we have seen that the government has signed a mining development agreement with Global Metals, and currently is negotiating some mining development agreements with Nkhani Resources and other companies. What do you expect from these mining development agreements? Because what we need is that to have mining agreements which are beneficial to the people, which the authorities, let's say the politicians or that, they are negotiating in good faith, where it benefits the citizens. Do you think there is anywhere where it is there are some signs of red flags, or are the negotiating guys negotiating in good faith? What is your take on that?
Yeah, first and foremost, the minerals that are being explored that belong to green energy, we mostly have
We cannot hear you, Ignatius.
Someone was trying to call me.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Yeah.
Yeah, we have minerals like lithium. That I would try to mention those minerals that are being explored to a large extent. We have lithium. We also have graphite. I think you are aware that one of the companies, Sovereign Metals, has discovered one of the greatest deposits in the world, in Malawi. So we have graphite, the predominant ones, lithium, We also some indications of copper mineralization in the northern Malawi, and there are some companies that are doing the exploration. One of them is the African Minerals in the north. We also have, but these are to a minute quantity, like the nickel and the cobalt. Those ones are not yet explored to a large extent. However, the most important minerals that are being explored at large across the country are the rare earths. We have so many companies that have intensified in search of these minerals. Now, to allude to what you have said, what should the government do in terms of the MDA? The government being the first reference of information, it has to trickle down to the communities through these exploration companies and mining companies. Now, in the context of Malawi, if you talk of the mining development agreements are very crucial in the sense that they provide a platform, and that platform has to include all the stakeholders for the benefit of the nation and the community with the districts that are centralized at large. Now, for Malawi to adopt and to jump up on this leveraging green minerals using the mining development agreement, there are issues that have to be at interplay. For example, these mining companies and exploration companies. Sorry, you can't see me. Huh?
Yeah, we can, but you can continue talking.
Okay, I've got some light there. Yeah, there's a risk of being involved in corruption. Corruption has been said to be one of the components whereby the hosting countries, the communities, and the mining companies and the exploration companies, they collude themselves in terms of who benefits from what. So I think there must be a transparency and accountability in the way how the government deals with these companies in terms of how the operationalization and the transition, how these companies, when they arrive in Malawi, what are the modalities that are involved? You have to have an inclusive engagement. Deals should not be done secretly, as we had seen examples before. So corruption must be one of the issues that have to be looked into. And the Malawi being one of the countries that belongs to Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, we have a body that is Mweiti, and I'll be very much happy to see if this Mweiti organization is able to lobby and probe whatever corruption risks are being encountered in this country. The other thing is, in terms of mining development agreement, I think in as much as Africa is a low carbon emitter, but you can see that in the value chain, with respect to MDAs, these transition minerals will provide infrastructure development. So to avoid that, I think there must be some sort of checks and balances in terms of procurement between buyers and sellers. How are the deals done? Are they done to the interests of the people? So there must be a leveraged platform where transparency and accountability has to take place so that each and everyone has to account for it. The other thing is, in as much as Malawi is not necessarily on top of the green energy minerals, but by the end of the day, we are looking at the involvement of joint ventures. There are some mining agreements that ask for a joint venture with the government, whether you need to nationalize, whether you need to have a stake. That is also very important. And in the mining development agreement, the host country has to have a share.
Hello, Ignatius. Hello. Okay, while we're waiting for Ignatius, If you have some questions, you can be typing in the chat to ask Ignatius. I've also seen that we have Mr. Dr. Green Marunga, who is one of the experienced mining experts in the country. Welcome, Dr. Green Marunga. You can post questions in the chat as we're waiting for Ignatius to connect. So far, there have been positive results of the exploration activities which are taking place in the country. And as a country, we are very hopeful that these minerals will not just be there for the sake of mining, but for the sake of developing this country. So the country really needs to leverage these mineral resources, the green energy minerals, to the country's advantage, so that the country can move from a low-income economy to a medium-income economy. And we have seen that the country has put in some incentives to some companies, but the major challenge is that the mining development agreements, some have been negotiated for so long, and we don't know why it is taking long. But I know the government has got its reasons, and also the companies have got its reasons. But we need to move to mining stage, whereby when these agreements are taking long, there now becomes loopholes for corruption, where some influence and due influence takes place to sweeten these deals. So as a country, we need to be very vigilant, especially with the organizations which play a critical role in oversight laws, like the media, the parliament, and also the general citizenry. We need a leading role in making sure that things are done transparently with the aim of making sure that the country benefits. Please, if you have any questions, please, as I said, keep posting them. As Ignatius has gone out because of internet connection. Please send your questions so that they can be answered. Dr. Gren Marunga.
Hello?
Okay. Ignatius is back. He's back. He had the poor internet connection.
Yes, I think there's a poor internet connection. I can see.
Yeah. So what do you really want to see change as far as these negotiations are done? Because we have seen that I just talked earlier that we have heard that like for Nkhani resources, they have been negotiating the mining development agreement for some time now, but there is no breakthrough. Of course, the government is saying that some of these MDAs will be signed soon. What do you think is delaying these negotiations? Don't you think that the delay also brings undue influence towards these negotiations, that the kickback, that the corruption or money envelopes can exchange hands, so that to influence the speedy completion of these mining development agreements?
Yeah, in as much as the MDAs have been signed, it is very important to note that the government machinery sometimes behaves in a bureaucratic way, in the sense that there might be individuals who have an interest, and the processes sometimes they drag down and drag behind because of such tendencies. However, it is very important that when governments put mining in the forefront, when the government has got a political will, I don't think it takes much time after the signing of the MDAs for implementation of the mining company to start the processes. However, I must highlight that of late in Malawi, the MDAs that have been signed, they seemed to have some loopholes, because I happened to read some of the MDAs. There are gaps that were left out. And if these are not carefully addressed, maybe it's a deliberate move for the government not to implement that. I don't know. But my understanding is the MDA has to have to transfer a government policy into an actionable objective. If the actionable objective is not achieved through a policy, there's a very high risk of the mining industry in a country like Malawi. So we need to have that onus of attracting investment. If we have that onus of attracting investment, I think these bureaucratic tendencies have to be put aside. In terms of corruption tendencies, there must be checks and balances, as I've alluded to. We have the MOITI, we have the Anti-Corruption Bureau. These are the machineries that have to make sure that they can even necessitate the speeding up of the implementation of mining in Malawi. So, all in all, what I can say is, in as much as we have a stable government and our policy in mining is very predictable, we still need a transparent and sustainable mineral supply chain. Okay, and this has to be inclusive in the mining development agreement. Of late, we have extended to community development agreements. So when the MDAs are put on hold, the communities that are also eager to have the mining to take place in their jurisdiction, we are also denying them the chance to have employment. We are denying them the chance to develop. We are denying them the chance to economic prosperity. So I think we need to have a reliable machinery for these mining companies to kickstart. Thank you.
Chico, you're muted.
Malawi is a democracy where governments can change. We have seen that this happens in most African countries. You find that this government negotiates a deal with a mining company, and the next government which comes will say that no, you negotiated a very bad deal. What should we do as a country that when we negotiate a deal should be a deal that will last longer, where nobody will complain about it. It will bring the intended results, that no matter whether a government has changed, it will still be a very good mining development agreement. Because people will say that in the country, in Malawi, many people are very skeptical when it comes to mining issues. They'll say that no, the people in the mining industry are very corrupt. There are a lot of bribes exchanging hands, and many other things. What can we do as a country to remove that kind of skepticism that the government is negotiating these things, these deals, with the intention of helping its people to develop? Ignatius?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think the topic as regards to the green energy minerals we're talking about is to do with the transparency and accountability. So the first situation is that the government itself must be transparent in its dealings, in which case what we mean is whatever documentation or whatever has been drafted or signed in terms of the agreement, it must be made public. It must be made public in the sense that even the stakeholders and the CSOs have to have an input into that. So by the end of the day, I think we will not have a situation whereby there will be finger pointing, because every information has been accessed, and even the mining industry itself is able to forge ahead into the right direction. And the other thing is, in as far as the CSOs are perceived to be noisy, they provide the checks and balances in terms of how even these MDAs are signed. It must also be passed on to the CSOs to check on this if there is an inconsistency in the way how these mining deals were done. And in other aspects, we should not forget the legal aspect. It must have an identifiable legal binding, so that if there are changes, they must be amended in good faith. That is also very important to involve the legal fraternity into the MDAs, because some MDAs have got loopholes because they did not have binding principles that were done at that time. The other thing is the management of the resources. The government has to, as I have said, it has to enter into a win-win situation. And that win-win situation must be made public. For example, if Malawi wants to have a state-owned company, or if it wants to have a joint venture, it must disclose to Malawians to say, we are joining this joint venture into such an equity. In that aspect, I think the uncertainty surrounding corruption deals and the dissatisfaction from the transparency and accountability will be minimized. And in that case, if this information is made public, we'll have a time whereby investors now will be willing to invest in Malawi, because it's a corruption-free country. That is also very, very important.
Yeah, so currently the world is talking about ESGs, environmental, social, and governance. How should the social aspect of the ESG be incorporated into these mining development agreements, so that the people should not be deprived of their social or their social interest in it?
I think one of the aspects that has to be included in these mining deals in terms of the MDAs is the social aspect, in which case you need to involve the communities in terms of sensitization and engagement. These communities cannot be left out, because they are the pillars in areas where the mining sector or the mining company is working on. So it is also very, very important to include these people in that aspect. I may give you an example of in terms of the environment. Mining companies have proved to, not necessarily proved, but there is this notion to say that mining companies, they destroy the environment. In as much as we are moving towards green energy transition minerals, we are also subject to destruction of the environment. So there's what we call the triple planetary crisis in terms of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Now, all these, by the end of the day, they will impact the community. So that is why it is very, very important to include the communities in terms of social impact in the MDAs. They have to be involved at each and every stage of implementation with respect to the social aspects on the ground. That is very, very, very important in terms of community engagement and mobilization.
We have a question here from Meredith Jackson. Since Malawi is a member of both the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative and Open Governance Partnership, with one Open Governance Partnership commitment focused on mining, how well do you think the country is implementing the action plans?
In terms of open governance in Malawi, we have had the projects that were geared towards the Malawi Growth Government. It was Malawi Growth Governance Project. It was geared towards the open governance. You are right. We only have the Mweti as one of the watchdog as far as the mineral sector is concerned in terms of transparency and accountability. But you must understand that Malawi is a young country in terms of mining. Most of the areas are being explored that mining is taking place. So I'm sure that with time as we progress, the open government issues as they crop up, there will be an inversion whereby other organizations will now try to come up with an agenda in Malawi and open up themselves. So there must be a political will. If you put political will at center stage, everything in place in terms of governance will be subjected to improvement of in the mining sector as far as Malawi is concerned. Thank you.
You have talked of governance issues. Which area of governance do you think the country should improve on, so that we should have a sustainable and strong mining sector?
The first one which I look at as a framework, it's our mining policy. Of late, we have seen that the mining policy and even the Mining Act has been revised. Now, as far as the policy is in place, there is need to embrace the clauses that are there to be applied to all sectors in terms of, to the mining sector in terms of governance. For example, how stable is our country in terms of macroeconomic factors? What is the tax regime in our country in Malawi? Is it conducive to an investor? Is it conducive in terms of GDP? What are we doing as a country to attract these investors in terms of how we govern ourselves? Are we able to adhere to the demands of the both national and international statutes? These have to be passed on even to the governance structures. So what I'm seeing is a situation whereby the government has to have an opportunity, even in terms of the society groups. How do we centralize or decentralize ourselves to the communities through the MDAs as CDAs? These are the issues that need to be taken into account seriously before any mining company comes into effect. Sure.
Yeah, Malawi and many other African countries, as we have already said, are making a lot of discoveries in terms of these green energy minerals. And this, because they're in high demand in the West and in the Far East, they can bring in transnational corruption. How as a country can we do to make sure that this kind of transnational corruption is deterred or is not perpetuated? Because the people who are looking for these minerals are very powerful. The corporations are very powerful, which can facilitate the loopholes which are there, which can facilitate corruption, and which can make these countries not to benefit much from these natural resources. What do you think should be done?
I think we have so many constraints as regard to dealing with a loophole or a seepage to corruption. I'll cite you an example of some other countries, what they have done, like Tanzania and Kenya. where they're providing a digital platform so that issues of transparency and accountability have to be made public. They also introduced, I think there are some organizations that introduced what we call Know Your Customer, where they are requesting information from these green energy mining companies so that they have to be put in one digital platform for one to access. I saw that as an initiative where Malawi can also adopt. We can adopt that. That is very, I see that as very fruitful as far as the corruption risks are involved. We also have initiatives that are able to reach the communities through engagement. These mining companies, when they come, they are said or perceived to monopolize, especially the host countries in Africa. So to reduce that monopoly, there is need for the government to engage these communities at grassroots level within the society, so that the government, the civil society groups, and the communities, but the private sector, they come together and make a binding principle. They join a force against agents of corruption. So through community engagement, I think that is also one way of sensitizing them. There are also initiatives that may be perceived to be important in terms of reducing corruption. For example, intensive use of the media. You can use different media houses to publicize information pertaining to the mining sector in terms of corruption. You can have information that is geared towards against corruption. So by using different media houses, information can flow throughout the whole country, whereby the country can have one unit of direction against anyone who is able to penetrate to have these corruption deals with the government. Thank you.
Now the audience can ask questions. You can raise your hand if you have a questions. If you have a question, while we are doing so, let me ask this question: what's the law of the Chamber of Mines to make sure that the companies are not taken advantage of, but also that government is not taken advantage of when it comes to making this deal, so that it should create a win-win situation for both the government and also the people? And also, what is the law of the Chamber of Mines, the country's Chamber of Mines, in making sure that corrupt practices are discouraged in their members who are doing the exploration and mining activities? You can raise your question if you have a question. You can raise your hand. Yes, Ignatius, you can answer while we are waiting to open the queue for questions.
Sorry, if I get you are saying the role of the Chamber of Mines.
Yes, because the chamber represents the mining companies.
Yes.
It fights for the rights of these companies, but what's their role to make sure that the companies are not taken advantage of and the government is not taken advantage of, and also that the companies who are the members of the chamber are avoiding these corrupt practices?
I think in as much as the Chamber of Mines is involved, it has a duty to lobby for these mining companies towards the government. Now, in that aspect where corruption is involved, I think the Chamber of Mines has to have a unity of direction. It has to have a part where it has to bring these two members together for one purpose. the Chamber of Mines should not be seen to be clinging to one side. It has to give itself a 50-50 leaning towards each side, whether the mining side or the government side. In that context, it is playing a duty of transparency and accountability. But where a Chamber of Mines sides itself against one side, like the mining sector, that is the point where you can be questionable if it is indeed dealing in good faith. So what I'm saying is there must be leveraging in terms of the playing ground. The Chamber of Mines has to have a neutral ground as far as it is concerned in dealings with a mining company against the government in question.
Benjamin Chikusa, you have got a question. Please ask. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, let me just thank you guys for this wonderful approach that you've taken. I think mining is one sector that can really bring a lot of economic value to Malawi, and for bringing so many people from different avenues together. That's fine. Well, before I ask the question, I simply wanted to maybe just for 1 minute, if allowed, just to talk about something on mining specifically here in Malawi and then in the other African countries, because I was privileged in 2013 to undergo a training on mining policy and contract negotiations at the University of Johannesburg, which was funded by IDRC. And while there, it was an eye-opener, because they did tell us that in all countries, when you're negotiating mining contracts, there are 5 stakeholders that are supposed to be there right away from the beginning up to the end: government, the company that is coming in to mine, the civil society, the local communities, and then the media. So these 5 should not be left out right away from the beginning. Now, I know Malawi, we have a mining policy, but then I think the challenge is it does not give way to these 5 stakeholders to start right away from the beginning. Because if these 5 stakeholders were involved right away from the beginning, we couldn't have been having things like what happened at Kairekea, where you would find government negotiating, giving a mining company a 10-year tax holiday.
Can you ask the questions, because there are other people who would like also to ask?
Yes, this is just a background. Yes. So my question to Mr. Ignatius is, have you maybe come into contact with negotiating team, which stakeholders are really involved, so that maybe from there, that's when we can now ask better. Thank you.
Okay. We should also take 2 other questions, then Ignatius, you answer. I'm writing on your behalf. If you are not writing, we have Scotch Kondowe. Please, can you ask your question? Your mine services, can you can ask your question?
Yeah, well, thank you, Chico. I wanted to comment, but I think the format does not allow me to have enough time to talk about the Chamber of Mines, how the negotiating team was setting government, and the issues to do with the benefit sharing. Maybe at the next forum, which you may wish also to host, I should be able to highlight issues that are very important in relation to what also Benjamin has said. Really, we seem to be putting corruption at a very, very high level in a country where there's only exploration happening. So I think the next forum will be useful for me to put some insights in terms of the conduct of the mining sector in Malawi as it is. Thank you, Chico.
Thank you, Dr. Malunga. Mr. Scotch Kondowe, you can ask your question, please. Okay, then Ignace, you can answer these questions, which of course Mr. Malunga said he will explain more in the next session, but it has been asked, can you answer this question? Which stakeholders are involved in this mining development agreements or negotiation?
Okay, I'm very, very happy to have that question, and also very happy to have Dr. Malunga here, who is my mentor. My answer will be more or less like clinging to what Dr. Malunga has just said. In a young country where exploration is the order of the day than mining, we seem to be pushing much towards corruption than implementing the mining sector itself. However, to answer your question, I must answer this in a twofold. The stakeholders, me as someone who is in the mining sector and as a geologist, I will answer this as an individual. In as much as that initiative was done, I cannot say 100% sure that all stakeholders were involved. Why am I saying this? I'll give you an example of the private sector, where we have so many of these mining and the mining gurus. We had a platform where we discussed this at length, but to the disappointment of the group, it was seen that the other section of the society in the mining sector was not fully consulted, or it was not consulted at all. So to answer your question, not all the stakeholders that you have highlighted here were consulted. Some of them were left out, and yet the process is still continued. I'm saying this from what I know from the consultation period up to the time when this was implemented. Thank you very much.
So from the lessons learned from, okay, there is a question. Priscilla Mwasinga, please, you can ask your question. Priscilla, go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I joined late, so maybe what I asked, maybe you've already covered, I'm not sure. But I just wanted to know that, yes, right now it seems like maybe there's a lot of exploration being done in Malawi, but I'm even wondering whether there are frameworks for that and whether it's really controlled, or people now, because if it's not well controlled, then you would get, of course, very high levels of corruption, because you'd find people may be getting minerals out and they're saying they're exploring. How can you be exploring for over like 10 years? You're still, in the exploration phase, and yet on the grapevine, we hear that no, actually people are taking, minerals out and there's no control. So don't you think that even at that level where there's exploration, there should be stringent controls and stringent frameworks, guiding like how long people can do that, and also to be showing the outcomes? I don't know how transparent, whether they're doing any explorations where they're sharing really the findings and so on, and in order to avoid, just the country being, for lack of a better word, raped and everything taken, and leaving the country bare, and people not even benefiting from the resources which God gave us for our country. Thank you.
Sacred, Samuel, you can ask your question before Ignatius answers this one.
All right. Can you hear me, Shiko?
Yes, I can hear you well.
All right. Because I've joined late, but I want to ask Ignatius about the funds for us small scale miners. Actually, for me, I'll talk about me because I'm part of this industry, but only selling the mining equipments. So I would like to ask Ignatius, is there any funds that are allocated to small scale miners so that maybe we may boost up our business?
The question should be restricted to the current topic we are discussing about transitional minerals. So, but that point is taken. Ignatius will try to answer that. Brian
Okay.
Kubalo.
Yeah, thank you. Mine is just a follow-on comment from the statement that my esteemed colleague, the geologist, said that we are too much concentrating on corruption. At the same time, you're saying that when the negotiations were done, all the stakeholders that are recommended to be present were not present. I'm astounded at how you've mentioned that as a matter of course, not as a matter of regret, that something as basic as involving the community wasn't done, and it looks like that's okay.
Ignatius, you can go on.
Okay, should I start answering the first question?
Yeah, whichever you can start with.
Okay. Maybe I should just answer this one, the one that has been just been raised. You should understand what I have said. It's not a guarantee that, and it's not binding by word of mouth to say that all the stakeholders were not involved. But what I'm saying is there's a certain part of the society that was not reached and exhausted. Why did I say this? I said this because in one of the platforms on the mining stakeholders in Malawi, there were issues that were raised to say some societies were not contacted or were not approached, and yet the process still continued. So that is what I'm saying. There is a certain group of society which is crucial to the mining sector in Malawi, but it was not approached at length. That's what I'm saying. The other thing is to do with I think there was a framework. Someone asked about, is there a framework to control the proliferation and the taking out of samples in Malawi and whatever is involved? I'm not sure if at all we have a framework to that effect, but what I can say is there are control measures that are put in place. I'm sure whenever a mining company does exploration and take out samples, there's a procedure that is followed, and it has to pass through the government and they pay royalties. However, the issue of samples is very crucial in Malawi. And the issue of mining companies exploring for over 7 to 10 years is also an issue. But as a geologist, what I can tell you is mining is a tedious process. The minimum or max, I can say the maximum that an exploration company can take should be 7 years for a company to start mining. Others, they go beyond that up to 10 years. So where an exploration company is involved in taking out samples, those samples are taken out with a jurisdiction and they are inspected. And you must be mindful of people who say that mining exploration companies are taking bunches and bunches of samples going out, and yet we are being robbed of our minerals. I cannot necessarily say that we are being robbed of, but you must understand that the bulk samples that are taken from an exploration activity. They have to be assayed outside the country. Since we do not have an accredited mining laboratory in Malawi, they go outside. And while outside there, you must be mindful of the recovery, because the recovery is what determines the value of the mineral. So I can assure you that the samples that go out of Malawi, after all, there's always a pilot project, a pilot study or project that is taken to confirm the viability of the deposit. So in as much as we are saying we are being robbed off, but in essence, we are not. The only drawback we have as Malawi as a country is we do not have a lab to analyze those minerals. So by going out with the samples through a mining or an exploration company, the perception that is in people is that we are being robbed off of our minerals. But let us be mindful. These guys, they know what they are doing, because exploration and sampling is a very tedious process, because by the end of the day, you need to recover something. You can have a sample of 1,000 tons of a material, and you can only recover maybe 2 grams of a mineral. So you can see most of the material there is wasted. It's not being mined as a mineral per se. So be assured of that, though I'm not sure if there is a framework, which I doubt, but there are controls that are taking place throughout the government of Malawi. Thank you.
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock right now. Maybe we can add 5 minutes to it. Dr. Marunga, you are here, you are a mining expert in the country. I cannot just end this conversation without you giving you a space to speak, but we organize that you should also have your own session. Well, what's your take? Because mostly we see people talking things which are not there. The public are very skeptical when it comes to mining issues. The media, they write things which are non-existent, or sometimes they're existent. The same with the civil society. As a chamber of commerce or as one of the mining experts in the country, how do you look at it? How should we remove that kind of mentality from the people so that they should be doing things which are on the ground, so that the mining sector should not be painted as it is right now, as a corrupt practice, as people, somebody said, they're stealing samples going there. What should we do as a country?
Yeah, thank you, Chico. First of all, let me thank Ignatius. He has been very, very elaborate and very useful in terms of disseminating information related with the transitional minerals. In terms of people always talking negative about the mining sector, what I've noted is that we need a mindset change, a culture of encouraging good news. In Malawi, we strive on negative information, and any negative thing, even without substantive evidence, it can be amplified. And this is something that I think we need to fight against. The issue of samples, some of us have written a lot and disseminated information, how the mineral development process evolves, and Ignatius has able also reiterated that this evening. But tomorrow you will still see people talking about the samples as if people are taking minerals for sale. Where there's a mine, there's evidence of a big hole or even big activities, large mining equipment. So in the sample, there's no way you can say that people are stealing our minerals. I thank Ignatius for confirming that. And the other thing is, us as a chamber, we are self-regulated. We do not wait for government to come and confirm that we are doing the right thing. We have most of our members here are in the transitional minerals sector, and they are well self-regulatory because of abiding to the bylaws and the ethics and the integrity the chamber promotes. But at the same time, these are international companies that are registered in various stock exchanges, such as the Australia Stock Exchange, Toronto Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange. So they are supposed to be abiding by the discipline that governs companies registered under the stock exchange. And I'm sure that we need to encourage these companies, more of them, to come in. If you see very few members in the chamber, it's because they cannot abide by the integrity that we promote. But I must thank you, Pelekezi, for doing a very good job this evening to bring this issue. And I hope that you will continue to host these forums and engage people like Ignatius to continue educating our people to understand what mining is all about and how we can encourage exploration and investment in the mining sector. We should not, I repeat, we should not take what is happening in the artisan and small-scale mining and, relate it with what is happening in the medium to large-scale mining. Because we don't have medium to large-scale mining to talk of as of now. All of these are small-scale mining. And I hope that we should be able to educate our people to understand what is artisan or small-scale mining and what is medium to large-scale mining and what is happening currently. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Chico, and thank you, Ignatius, for elaborating to our people. As Benjamin is one of them, he has been following up on mining policy and law. I hope you also have the opportunity to try and give an overview of the mining sector in Malawi, rather than listening to the same person for a long time, and the people started also judging him as belonging to the other group and benefiting from the other group. That's what happened in Malawi. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we are closing up. I just want to give you Gren Marunga 1 minute to conclude, and also Ignatius to conclude. Dr. Gren Marunga, Malawi has got these green transition minerals. What should we do as a country? Because these minerals are really in demand.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question.
1 minute.
We are a blessed country. We are blessed with these green minerals. And the process that the government is undertaking, the involvement of the CSOs and the community development agreements in place, these are also forming part of the mining development agreement. So we are going to have robust mining agreements that can be promised to our people. And the Open Government also initiative, Malawi as a member, we are also looking at engaging all the stakeholders so that there's transparency in the sector. Thank you.
Ignacio, 1 minute.
Yeah, I would like to see Malawi at a certain stage where we'll be labeled as one of the mining countries in Southern Africa. And to achieve this, we need to be backed up by a strong science base, a good and sound political resolve, and also an engagement of the society in terms of the groups and the communities plus the private sector, with the government as the main player for us to achieve the mining industry in Malawi. Otherwise, failing that, I think we'll just be talking of mining, and the corruption creeps up, and we remain like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ignatius, for being our guest speaker, and also thank you, Dr. Marunga, for for joining and giving your expert opinions. We'll be doing these sessions maybe twice a month, and we'll be engaging all the stakeholders from the government side, from the civil society, from the policymakers, from different sectors, so that we should be able to convey the message which is beneficial to the country, instead of pointing fingers at each other. The government is trying its best to make sure that the mining sector brings the intended results into the country. That's why it has been put as a priority area in the Malawi 2063 development agenda. And we are sure that mining will bring development into this country. But we as citizens of this country also need to stay vigilant, to make sure that things are happening transparently and for the benefit of the people. Thank you everyone for joining. We hope you join us again next time. We'll have Dr. Marunga one of the days. We also have somebody from government, so that we should have opinions from all of them. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.